Lagos is currently the largest city in Nigeria, and by the end of the century it could be the largest in the world. What was once a small coastal town has today exploded into a megacity with a population of 15 million, which, get this, is set to double by 2050. And usually when cities turn into megacities, there's better infrastructure and economic opportunities for the people. But in developing countries, it can also end up making the rich richer and the poor even worse off. We can also see this in Mumbai, for example. Home to over 21 million people, it's considered the financial capital of India, with tall skyscrapers, long highways, and thriving industries. But it's also the city that houses one of the biggest slums in the world, where people have little access to basic facilities like water and sanitation. Today, 2/3 of the population in Lagos live below the poverty line. The city also struggles with a high crime rate, an inefficient public transport system, and an impact on natural resources due to climate change. To tackle this though, the government of Lagos has come up with this: a 30-year plan to make Lagos Africa's model megacity and transform it into something that they call an ultra-modern economic destination. Right now, all eyes are on Lagos because if they manage to achieve this, it could be the start of a new era of urbanization in Africa. And today we're going to find out what this city could look like. So did you know Africa's urban population is growing faster than any other continent in the world? One of the biggest reasons behind this is a youth bulge, where more people between 15 and 29 years of age move from rural areas to cities, seeking new job opportunities, bigger markets for business, and better living conditions. In fact, Africa is the youngest continent in the world, with just a median age of 19. And honestly, this could be a great shift for the people because cities hold a lot of economic power. 10% of Nigeria's total GDP of more than $400 billion is generated in Lagos alone. It's also considered Africa's startup capital and is gradually becoming the tech hub of the country, with companies like Google and Microsoft headquartered in the city. Over the years, the city has developed 2 seaports, local and international airports, and several industrial areas, resulting in Lagos becoming the center of Nigeria's social and economic activity. But the growth hasn't really been able to keep up with the rise of Lagos's population, which is exactly when an urban divide starts to build in megacities. Today, Lagos houses more than 7% of Nigeria's population, but more than 2/3 of the people in Lagos state live in informal housing, including several in slum areas. Most facilities in these areas are either basic services like water and sewage and are often controlled by private companies that overcharge, because of which people can barely afford it. More than half the population here live in something called Face Me, I Face You housing, which has so little space that people share the same room while sleeping back to back or face to face. Public transport is hardly functioning and mainly consists of these minivans and motorcycle taxis. In fact, on average, Lagos residents spend more than 1,500 hours in traffic annually, whilst people in LA, for example, which is a city known for awful congestion and traffic jam, spend just 128. The city of Lagos also has the smallest landmass in Nigeria, making it very difficult to accommodate for a growing population and their need for infrastructure. In fact, poor drainage systems are partly responsible for recurring floods like these.
People face a lot of stress because of the road. So I normally take boats every day in order to get to office on time.
The truth of the matter is that the government is trying, but it's not at the stage we want Lagos State to be. People living in slums area or in the lower class area, they don't normally dispose their waste because they cannot afford it. So they prefer putting it inside the gutter so that the water will carry it during the rainfall, carrying it to the lagoon, thereby polluting the lagoon, the water that's supposed to be enjoying it.
I'd actually love to know from you in the comments whether you can relate to any of these problems. And if not, what does your life look like in your city or town? What kind of issues are you having to deal with? After I heard the people of Lagos talk about their problems, ironically, I came across this report, which told me that Lagos is Nigeria's wealthiest city, holding $97 billion of total private wealth, which doesn't sound like the same city that these people were talking about. At this point, I had to find out, why isn't more money being spent on the city, and does the government even have any plans to improve it?
We're focusing on 20 strategic areas that will drive this very deep ambition.
In October of 2022, Executive Governor of Lagos State announced a 30-year plan to make Lagos Africa's model megacity. The Lagos State Development Plan of 2052 focuses on 4 objectives: economy, infrastructure, governance, and building a human-centric city. With over 400 initiatives, each task is assigned to a specific ministry and classified into 4 categories, starting with quick wins to long-term development. And the big focus of this plan is to create high-value jobs over the next 30 years and expand into sectors like trade and manufacturing, building more tech ecosystems, and even contributing to the growing film industry in Nigeria, Nollywood. At first glance, the plan looked great, but implementing it would require strong leadership and lots of money. And there seems to be a lack of funds, not just in Lagos, but in Nigeria as a whole. To make up for its gap in infrastructure, Nigeria needs an estimated $3 trillion by 2050. So where are they going to get that? One of the ways in which it's securing these funds is by borrowing them primarily from China.
Nigeria is determined to attract foreign direct investment.
Yeah, we value the relationship.
And is pledged its support for One China.
Nigeria.
China has been significantly investing in the country and has almost become an alternative to financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank. As of today, it's Nigeria's largest bilateral lender and is funding large projects including railways, hydroelectric power plants, and the rehabilitation of Nigeria's main 4 airports, one of which is in Lagos. And here's something that you're going to find interesting. The Nigeria-China trade in products increased from more than $1 billion in 2003 to nearly $14 billion in 2019. And in the same period, Nigeria's trade with the US declined from $11.5 billion to $7.5 billion. In fact, in 2018, the White House criticized the increasing influence of China in Africa and announced a new program called Prosper Africa to increase the trade and investment between the US and African countries. According to its website, the program has helped close to 1,000 deals, adding up to $65 billion in exports and investments. And the work is still ongoing. But the fact that this project was launched after China's increased investments in African markets makes me question the real purpose of Prosper Africa. Is it meant to grow African countries or to prevent China from growing too much in the region? The whole debate around whether China is on its way to financially colonizing Africa, as some have been putting it, is ongoing and a lot more complex to explain than in this one video. But Nigeria's dependency on borrowing to fund its infrastructure is quite clear. The country's total public debt crossed $100 billion in 2022. And what's truly shocking is that despite these numbers, Nigeria spends about 75% of its annual budget on civil servant salaries and other costs. In fact, Lagos State has higher tax revenue than any other in Nigeria, but most of this revenue is not even collected. So this is the plan on paper, but when you look on the ground about what's actually happening in the city, things don't look super good. The growth of Lagos's population is undisputed, but the new infrastructure and opportunities it will bring cannot be sustained if the people living below the poverty line are not included in this development plan. Does that mean that Lagos's version of being the ultra-modern economic destination is not possible? Not at all. What it needs is to expand its focus from just the rich to include all the different social groups that live within the city today. For example, when planning new residential projects, the city can't just be thinking about skyscrapers and luxury living. Solutions have to be built for low and mixed income groups, and sometimes this will take more effort because it doesn't just include constructing a building for them to live in. It includes creating equal educational resources and employment opportunities, which can then help them afford a better standard of living. Instead of modeling systems from developed countries that urbanize in a very different economic and environmental period, the city needs to identify its own strengths and build on them. And right now, one of the biggest strengths lies in its population and all the potential that its people hold. And thanks again to Blinkist for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in our description to get 30% off a Blinkist premium subscription.